Welcome to another edition of Global Conversations with Regis Tremblay, coming to you from beautiful and historic Yalta in the Crimea of the Russian Federation. Yalta is a vibrant city that energizes and inspires all who live and come here. Young and old relish this historic and beautiful place located between majestic mountains and the Black Sea. Welcome to another edition of Global Conversations. My guest tonight is my good friend, Vladimir Kozin. He's in Moscow. Tonight, we're going to talk about another Russian view on the outcomes of the recent summit between Biden and Putin. We're going to talk about Afghanistan. Several people have asked me to talk about Afghanistan, and Vladimir was stationed in Afghanistan during the Soviet era. So we will talk about that. And then several people have asked or have made the comment that Joseph Biden is not the one who makes US foreign policy, it is the deep state. And people have asked, is it the same thing in Russian government? So Vladimir, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much, Regis. Hi.
It's always good to see you and to get your very valuable insights into so many issues. So, in terms of the summit that was just concluded this week, what is your analysis and what, if anything, came out of it?
Okay. The analysis is rather moderate. Even President Vladimir Putin making his press conference when the summit was completely over, admitted that they have noticed only the glimpses, the flashes of trust between each other, but not full trust between Washington and Moscow so far. And though the mood was optimistic, was very positive from both sides, but unfortunately not too many practical results, especially detailed practical results. Only one statement has been stamped, though it is very important, on strategic stability. How to enhance strategic stability. And inside this very short statement, just on one page, President Biden and President Putin agreed to launch a dialogue on strategic stability. It's not a new, because strategic dialogue has been continued for many years during President Barack Obama and Donald Trump. But strategic dialogue between Moscow and Washington is not a comprehensive one. It is very limited. And no practical results have been achieved so far. There are 14 unresolved issues, especially in arms control only. The positive thing with this statement on strategic stability is that two presidents reiterated the famous maxim or the famous philosophical or political motto that nuclear war should not be fought because there will be no winners from each side. It doesn't matter who starts nuclear war first or second. I mean, in retaliation, there will be no winners. Just for the sake of reality, ex-President Barack Obama and Donald Trump, they have never repeated again this formula dates back to 1985, when Mikhail Gorbachev met Ronald Reagan, the US president at that time. They have launched this kind of formula. And Moscow tried to persuade the previous President Donald Trump to subscribe again to Gorbachev-Reagan formula, but the American side refused. So Mr. Joseph Biden agreed to reiterate, and they have already done so. That's very good. But unfortunately, still, there is no information what will be the format of the new dialogue on strategic stability. Who will be the head of the respective delegation, at what level? What kind of arms control issues or issues related to strategic stability will be listed in the agenda of the upcoming dialogue on strategic stability? There is no fixed date so far. So amongst a number of issues unresolved so far, US economic and financial sanctions vis-a-vis the Russian Federation, not resolved. And even today, when we are talking to each other, Regis, it's June 20th, I have picked up the news from Washington that Joseph Biden's administration would like to launch another step in the direction of economic and other sanctions against Russia. A new sanction or sanctions will be linked to Mr. Navalny. Mr. Navalny, we have been exchanged our views in the previous talk show. Actually, he is criminal because he was tried by criminal court for embezzlement and for illegal appropriation of money from foreign company. Two more non-criminal but civilian cases have been raised against Mr. Navalny. The first civilian case, it is minor offense if compared with the criminal code, but nevertheless, he insulted the Second World War veteran and his decorations. The veteran has got when he was fighting with the Nazi Germany. And the second civil case was launched against Mr. Navalny when he insulted the judge. If I remember correctly, he publicly in the courtroom called the lady judge as a commandant in the concentration camp. How come? Is Mr. Navalny stupid or illiterate? Why the Americans are defending this poor creature called Navalny? Why? Not a proper person, talented, gifted, that can produce better program for the Russian Federation, that is taking care for the Russian citizens, etc., etc., etc. He is criminal. He is a illiterate person. Why Mr. Biden is protecting criminal and illiterate scoundrel who is insulting the Second World War veteran and the lady judge in the courtroom? when, by the way, foreign diplomats have been present. They have been in the courtroom and heard everything word by word. Why they are protecting him? They should not do it. It's a wrong behavior. It is unethical behavior, immoral and very rude job.
And
As to,
Vladimir,
yes?
in light of Biden's own comments after the summit that America does not interfere in the internal affairs of other countries, a few days later, he has the nerve to impose more sanctions on the Russian Federation and meddling again in the internal affairs of Russia. The behavior is so contradictory that one side of the behavior cancels the other. And so basically,
yes. Regis, you are absolutely right. You are strict to the point. It's a double standard policy. During the summit, all smiles, nice conversations, sitting in the library. But the day after, completely different attitude and completely different stories. So it's a start. It's a very good. Better to start something rather than not to start at all. Sitting, doing nothing.
Yeah.
Sorry, Regis. Please go ahead.
No, it leaves me with very little hope. Just to think that, oh, okay, they started talking, but nothing will happen. And Biden says, we will see how Russia behaves now in the next few weeks, the next 3 months, and maybe 6 months. And then maybe we'll get serious. I mean,
yes.
How contradictory is that?
Okay. What will be the outcome if, for example, just imagine Moscow will tell Joseph Biden the same. We will wait half a year or probably 1 year. We examine the behavior of Washington, especially the attitude of Washington in terms of arms control, strategic stability, meddling into domestic affairs of other nations. And then we'll make a judgment what to do or what not to do. So it's a cul-de-sac.
So Vladimir,
Mm-hmm.
nothing is going to come of it, but I know that you believe, I certainly do, and others here believe that the United States, in the eyes of Putin and the Russian Federation, the Russian government, know they cannot trust the United States. They know that. But do you think that Russia is being weak, or do you think that Russia, in the person of President Putin, is continuing to take the high moral road and not descend to the level that the United States has been behaving?
Well, Russia is not a weak country. It's a rather strong country. But unfortunately, we sometimes are too shy to tell the opposite number. Just a simple thing. You guy, what are you doing? You are playing with the fire. You are threatening the globe, our planet, with a horrible weapon. You are just nourishing the first use of nuclear weapons. In many, many cases, sometimes on the rubber pretext. I mean, that can be interpreted very easily this way or the other. So, but our tolerance is not limitless. it has certain limits in many cases in terms of nuclear arms race, in terms of missile defense arms race, in terms of space-based strike weapons arms race, in terms of whatnot. But we gradually are acquiring this kind of capability to open eyes of our opposite numbers. We have to tell them truth, though it is sour, though it is unpleasant, but we are going to tell this kind of truth.
Vladimir, I have to wonder, I really have to wonder, because nobody knows what took place with the one-on-one meetings. Nobody knows whether President Putin and Sergei Lavrov stared at Joseph Biden and Anthony Blinken and read them the riot act, told them the unpleasant truth. I can't believe that President Putin in private would just sit there and take those assaults.
The assault was obvious. If I were the head of state of the Russian Federation nowadays, I would have never sat at the same negotiation table with a gentleman named Joseph Biden until he becomes sober and rational and reasonable. But summit was launched very quickly. That's not good. Because there are two types of summits at the level of the head of states. Summits, first, that are perspective, that are launching further negotiations, and persons participated in the prospective or positive summits arrive at specific treaties and conclusions, like, for example, ABM treaty or SALT strategic offensive arms limitation talks, and then start strategic arms reduction talks. So, but summits with only one short statement, though it's a positive one, it's not a negative one, it's a positive one, but very short and without any details. It's not a bona fide summit. It's not it's not by 100% summit. It's a partial summit with the partial results.
Yeah, and I think the best that I could say about it is at least the principal actors on both sides for the first time met each other face to face. I mean, Putin has met Biden before, but not as head of state. And Lavrov meeting Blinken and Biden together, one could think that this is a positive thing, that at least they met face to face. And I still have to wonder what Putin and Lavrov would have said to Joe Biden and Anthony Blinken when they came in beating their chest that, you know, we are the one indispensable, we are the one exceptional nation. I cannot believe the two of them would have sat there and taken that based on their previous comments on many occasions about not accepting that particular ideology. Well, I want to mention a couple more things about the summit. Do you think it was a good thing that the Russian and American ambassadors are returning to their post? Is that really a good, positive thing? Does it really make a difference?
No, it's a normal practice. They have been recalled, they have returned, and today, on June 20th, I've heard that Russian ambassador Anatoly Antonov by that moment has landed at the JFK airport in New York City. So he has returned. I don't know about the US envoy to Moscow. Has he came back or not yet, or just packing his suitcases to come back shortly? Certainly, it's a good that they are coming back, but this is not the resolution of crucial key issues we are still facing. Because Mr. Antonov and Mr. Kislyak was there as the Russian ambassador in the United States, and Vladimir Lukin and some other in the Soviet time. But the foreign policy issues in my country are resolved not by ambassadors, but the presidents, the head of states. Prime Minister is responsible for internal policy, economic, financial, etc., healthcare, education, and the president just holds the string of the foreign policy, as well as the relationship with the United States of America.
So Vladimir, let me ask you this. I want to jump in here. Pardon me for interrupting, but
okay, no problem.
Several people have asked and have mentioned that the president of the United States does not make foreign policy. It is what they call the deep state, military industrial complex, the Congress, the media, the big banks, the think tanks, et cetera, et cetera. And people are wondering, is it the same system in the Russian Federation? Is Putin just an empty suit that he does not make foreign policy?
Vice versa. He is the top gun. He sometimes takes upon himself a responsibility to show the best solution of some foreign policy issues. But nevertheless, he also takes into account the voices in the lower house of Russian parliament, the State Duma, and the Federation Council, the upper or Russian Senate, to put it in American way, and various committees and respective ministries that are having certain stakes on the international arena, like the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Economic Development, Ministry of Finance, etc., etc. So, but he's not a puppet. He is rather strong gentleman and strong personality that rules Russian foreign policy, and it is inscripted. It has been reflected in our basic law, named the Constitution of the Russian Federation. This foreign policy functions are vested to the president, not to the prime minister or not to parliament, because we are having a presidential republic with the superpower belongs to the president, to the head of state. Regis?
So, Vladimir, he's accused of being a dictator. The Russian Federation has been called a totalitarian state by the United States and by Western countries. It doesn't seem that that's the case.
It's a wrong assessment. It's again insult. It's again, if I pronounce the quite a difficult word in English, it's perverged analysis. It's a topsy-turvy assessment what the person is doing. I would like to take upon myself a responsibility and to label Joseph Biden and his predecessor Donald Trump as dictators in the United States political system. And not only in the United States, they are pretending to be dictators of the entire world, dictate other countries what to do or what not to do. Just look at the Nord Stream 2. It's a dictatorship. It's not economic. It's not a fair economic play or commercial business. It's a dictatorship. It's also a dictatorship to back up Ukraine in its military preparation and killing innocent civilians in Donbass, etc., etc., etc. It's a dictatorship. It's a dictatorship all over the world of the all-American presidents, because they are spreading military installations of the Pentagon, military bases, in every country all over the world, except just a handful of states who does not permit them to do so. Russian Federation, the People's Republic of China, North Korea, Cuba, etc., etc., Syria. Unfortunately, they do not understand, but they pretend to be real dictators. And that's very bad, because all setbacks and all problems we are facing, I mean, the world, is that American presidents behave as dictators. They believe too much in indispensability and the specific fate of the United States as the ruler of the world. A ruler of the world everywhere, on the ground, in the world oceans, on land, at sea, and currently in outer space, and in cyber warfare as well. They are threatening and not responding to our requests to explain and to give us figures in what way we have been wrong. We sent a lot of requests to explain to us, to enlighten us, but no response at all. And more than that, while American and other foreign newsmen have been invited to Vladimir Putin's press conference in Geneva after the summit was over, Mr. Biden preferred not to ask any single Russian correspondent or newsman to his own press conference that was conducted separately from the press conference of Vladimir Putin. Is it a fair play? Why Mr. Biden have chosen specific names of newsmen that have been authorized to ask certain question to His Excellency? What kind of journalism it is? Is it a freedom of word or what? It's a suppressed journalism. I know that many presidents of the United States, before big press conferences they have conducted, they asked the aides, the advisors, to prepare just many questions, potential questions that the audience may ask them during press conferences. And I've heard that ex-President Richard Nixon once collected 120 different questions that his aides were suspecting that they will may be asked during the press conference. Well, this kind of thing is normal. I mean, reference materials are prepared by the respective aides, the respective departments and ministries and agencies. It's normal. But to make a press conference like a TV show, prepared so in details that the president himself is choosing the number of guys he wanted to hear his the questions. It's a dictatorship as well.
Yeah, it was pretty embarrassing, because he said right at the beginning, he said, well, as usual, I'm going to call on the names of reporters my staff has given me.
Yes.
I mean, that was pretty embarrassing.
Yeah. Well, a person of any caliber, be it a low-key diplomat or a low-key politician, or at the highest level, like presidents, head of states and prime ministers, they should be able to respond without any prompter, without any paper printed before the press conference is arranged, but they should be capable to explain to people positions of the government, of the state, of the nation, on almost any issue, almost any issue, be it pandemic or be it arms control, be it protection of climate, etc., etc.
Yeah, and I think the contrast between President Biden's press conference and Vladimir Putin's press conference was very stark. He answered all questions from journalists from around the world and from the United States without cue cards, without a teleprompter, and as he usually does, he goes back and forth, and he even challenged some of them. So I think in terms of what the rest of the world saw, if they were watching, and they were certainly, they could see the contrast between these two leaders, these two heads of state, and the contrast was very stark and very disappointing, I think. Well, Vladimir, I want to move on to another subject, because you're somewhat of an expert on that as well.
Mm-hmm.
You were stationed in Afghanistan as secretary to the Soviet consulate from 1972 to 1976. Right. So you know something about Afghanistan and the conflict there. Afghanistan has been America's longest war. There's conversation in America now that they're going to pull out. They're going to take the troops out, and they're going to save $3 billion doing that, but they're going to invest $3 billion in financial aid and other whatever services to the government of Afghanistan. So they're really not leaving. So Vladimir, could you explain for me what really has been happening in Afghanistan for the last 20, 25 years, and what is happening today?
Ex-Soviet Union made mistake when it sent Soviet troops to Afghanistan in 1979 in December. But later on, we have withdrawn, and the Russian parliament has recognized that military involvement of the Soviet Union in Afghanistan as a political mistake. Yes, it was done openly by the parliament, the Soviet parliament during Gorbachev presidency, and the Russian parliament as well. So Afghanistan is a country that never tolerate any foreign presence. For example, during British Empire, the Brits sent British military contingents to Afghanistan, and they have fought 3 wars in Afghanistan, and all lost completely, no results. So we were there, also no positive results. And the United States made the same mistake as we have done. It's not necessary to send troops in Afghanistan because Americans are staying in that country nearly 20 years, and no results have been gained. No stability, no tranquility, no substantial economic growth, and the existing of vast poppy plantations. Heavy losses of armed forces of Afghanistan and heavy losses among the local civilian population in Afghanistan. United Nations organization counted that nearly 100,000 civilians casualties in the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan in the last 10 years. And especially I'm very much upset that there are heavy casualties amongst women and children. And as to the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights and the UN Assistance Mission in Afghanistan, they documented that last year, more than 8,000 civilian casualties took place, 3,000 deaths, and over 5,000 injuries. And a lot of children and women have been killed or injured. And these figures are just shocking tall. You are right. The federal year 2022 for the US Armed Forces allocates $3.3 billion in operational support to sustain the Afghan security forces. That's about 9% increase from 2021. So we have a saying that Americans are living through one door of the same building, but they are coming back through window of the same building, inside that building. So Americans should leave Afghanistan for good, without any exceptions. Military advisors, without tanks, helicopter gunships, etc., may stay if the Afghan government so desires to accept military advisors to the armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. It's a totally different story. But Americans should leave, and they should not relocate all military bases they are still having in Afghanistan in a great number of locations, in the capital, in Bagram airfield, in Kandahar, Kunduz, etc., Herat, Mazar-e-Sharif. They should not be relocated to any neighboring countries, neighboring republics like Central Asian republics or South Asia, Pakistan, or the Gulf countries. So they should leave for good, like we have done. We have done. There are no military personnel, no soldiers, no officers of the Russian armed forces in Afghanistan.
So let me ask you this, Vladimir.
Yeah, please do.
One of the things that the United States supposedly is worried about is the increase in terrorism in Afghanistan. Is that a realistic assessment?
No, it is not. It is not. Terrorism is flourishing in Afghanistan during foreign troops' presence in that country. I think that the Afghan people can sit together, all factions, all political forces of the Afghan society, and to set up Loya Jirga in Pashto, in Pathan language, in the Afghan language. Loya Jirga means Grand Assembly. It's much higher than the parliament. It is exclusively convened for very seldom purposes, like, for example, during the Second World War, Afghan government proclaimed total neutrality to the Second World War and not to take any side of the Second World War, etc., or proclaimed neutrality and non-interference into others' domestic affairs. I think the Afghan can resolve their fate by themselves. No foreign country can help them to do this.
Okay. It's very interesting because, in America, it's always Osama bin Laden in a cave with those terrorists who did that terrible thing in New York City, 9/11, and that Afghanistan is full of these crazy terrorists. But you make a good point. The only reason they're terrorists is because the American empire, the military has been there, and the people are rebelling against the empire. And anyway, I have another question to put to you, Vladimir, about Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. It has been widely reported that a very famous American general has said publicly on more than one occasion that the United States cannot leave Afghanistan because of the trillions of dollars in rare earth minerals under the ground. And also, many people have said and know that the United States military and the CIA are protecting the harvest of all of those poppies, which are then converted to cocaine, devastating drugs on not only America, but people around the world. Would you comment on those 2 points?
Well, Afghanistan, in terms of natural resources, is not very rich country. Afghanistan doesn't have huge reserves of oil or gas. It has just some areas of gold, and then barit in Russian, probably barit in English, I don't know, and a semi-precious stone called in the Afghan language lajawart, lapis lazuli. It's a blue stone. It's not a precious stone, it's a semi-precious stone, a blue, dark blue, with golden just fragments inside. It's very beautiful for making just rings and earrings, etc. Afghan economy is rich with its cattle, sheep, carpets, dry fruits, and fresh fruits as well, like pomegranate, right, etc. Angur, I mean grapes, etc., etc. Or just nuts, pistachio. In the Afghan language, pista. So, but not huge deposits of oil or gas or gold or whatnot, uranium, for example, no. But in terms of puppet plantations, yes, it can be a huge source of puppet plantation, and the producer of drugs, narcotic drugs, and to be sold in many, many parts of the world. Even ex-prime minister of the United Kingdom, Anthony Blair, once upon a time noticed or just revealed that Afghan cocaine is being sold in the streets of London. So look how far they proliferate this menace. But what Afghanistan needs badly, it's economic assistance in raising national cadres and personnel, and healthcare system and educational system, and building roads, constructing factories, etc. Probably railroad. The project once upon a time was on the surface when I was there in 70s of last century, connecting the railroad system of Iran and Pakistan across Afghanistan, via Afghanistan. Why not? It's feasible. It's a very good project. Or just to move Afghan roads or railroad southwards to the Pakistani port of Karachi in the Indian Ocean, on the Indian Ocean coast, southwards. It's also quite possible, but money is needed. Money is needed. Afghanistan alone cannot do this kind of job, because too many wars, and last century, current century, it's almost uninterrupted wars and military confrontation. It absorbs a lot of human resources, financial resources, etc., and huge, intolerable casualties and deaths of the Afghan people. They do not deserve it. They do not deserve it. They have fought many wars, many times. The Afghan fate is very tragic one, and it should be stopped completely. The sooner the better.